So that's the supply side, that's the demand side, and as the gaps get bigger, the prices get lower. Typical supply-demand. As the gaps get smaller, the price shoots up. We have issues of the oil or the diesel supplies coming in, and then as the gap gets bigger again, the price stabilizes at around 4 pesos, essentially. This is just a quick glance of the competitiveness of well, mainly around the ownership of the grid or generation capacity in the Philippines. It's called the HHI, the index of Hirschman index, Hirschman index, and it is mainly around the ownership and capacities. So I should have practiced this. This is not where you want to be, this is where you'd like to be. The Philippines is moderately concentrated, so it means there's still many of the capacity in the hands of a few owners. The reason why this one's coming down, that one's going up, this one over here is the metered capacity, so this is the actual. It just means that they've been more available. In terms of ownership, there's more owners in the grid or of generation capacity in the future, which is good. But they haven't started producing it. That's why we have the differing trends. In terms of preferential dispatch, you can see that the renewables are starting to come in. There's a 570, that wasn't me. I pushed the button too hard, I think. 570 installed megawatts versus an actual dispatch on average of about 100. So you can see it's not being dispatched yet, but it will get there. So that's currently where we are. Sorry, there's a button going across. So as a business model, what should we do as a country? We need to really look at smart grids in a smart way. The marketing hype of smart grids is too high, but certainly we have to look at ways of stabilizing the grid with smart technology. And DG has a major impact on that in terms of phase balancing. We really have to look at ways of making sure we optimize the grid and keep it stable. Not a big issue in terms of grid stability right now because there hasn't been a grid failure because of RE. But there is potential for this. So we have to look very carefully at how we keep it at a minimal risk. Identifying really what customers want. At a time in the 80s and 90s, all you wanted was to plug in something and it worked. You didn't care where it came from. With the issues around climate change, I think it's important that we all are aware that we have to do something around it. And how can we do something about it? One way is DG. So customers might have to move away. Even though I don't want to monitor my meter the whole time to see where I'm using things, they need to know where their supply is coming from. And we need to test what customers really do want. Mainly, there are big issues in lives generally. Do they really want to worry about the detail of exactly how to manage the intricacies of their own supply? Then generators have to look at the capacities they're going in. South Africa, Aaron mentioned South Africa. It was doing very well when it changed or was in transition, but it wasn't sustained. And I'll briefly talk about that at the end of my presentation to show what the risks are when you don't carefully look at the sustainability of your supply side. Generators should go instead of, we're busy, South Africa is investing at the moment in 10 gigawatts of coal. And these are huge stations, these are 800 megawatts per unit. These are not small units. And that's not flexible at all. If you look at what has happened in Europe, you need to go 50 megawatts. So you can switch out individual units instead of switching out a whole power station because you need smaller supply to be flexible in terms of the future market of DG. They also, traditional utilities have to look at options of going into RE and DG. They have to participate in this market development. If you stay out of it as a generator or as a DU, you'll end up not being that competitive in the future. Storage. Professor Sadoway of the US has now come to the market in a way with a battery that's liquid metal battery. that will be very cheap, low cost, I should say, that will be able to provide capacities at grid as well as individual household storage levels. So it will bring the price right down. And it's also made from abundant materials in the world, not lithium. So the current offerings of lithium that's happening is expensive. It's viable right now in a way, but expensive. Storage is going to happen. So I'm out of time. And then, of course, the issue of everybody is that it can negatively supply in the future. My last slide. The risk in the Philippines is always, this is a slide I showed last year, so there's only one element on this slide that I've changed, and I'll just mention that at the end. Commercial viability, you have to look at it carefully in the long term. Big issue in the Philippines because we still contract as a DU for 20 to 25-year contracts, and you can't do that anymore. But that's what's been offered. The banks want that kind of guarantee. They want that long-term guarantee. And then supply market developments, of course, what is happening at the moment in terms of our market. So you have to stay in touch with that. Technology is rapidly catching up and surpassing the way we try and do things. And then operational issues and plant availability as a general risk. It's been mentioned a few times. The process here is complicated and the timelines are unpredictable. We were expecting the contestable market to be in place 2 years ago. We contract for that, just in case it happens. We end up still having to supply the contestable customers. And my worry is the capacity. We had to go to the market to get it. So the price became affected because of less availability of supply. So it's a tricky business. And we just wish there was more delivery of on time and rational thinking of what can be done with changing this industry. And then the changing rules. As a simple one would just be being a res. First, everybody could be a res. Then now generators can't be a res. Now DUs can't be a res. And DUs can't be a local res anymore. So these are all things that are being discussed. It's really become a bit of an issue as to where do we position ourselves in the market. I think that's my last slide. Yeah. Just to end my presentation, South Africa, we don't want to be there. They had major blackouts. We call them blackouts there. Over the last 3 months, and the utility has gone from one of the crown jewels of the South African economy into one of the laughing stocks, mainly because of lack of planning, lack of policy, and lack of capacity right now, because the country grew as well. When the change of 96 happened, everybody invested in South Africa. It was a wonderful market, wonderful model, and very promising. It's a good economy. It's got everything going for it. Resources, people, it's all there. But Eskom, the utility, suffered from leadership issues and has suffered. So I'm going to play a little clip as a departing. So if you can just play the clip. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members and members of the media. This is a public announcement on behalf of Eskom. There is a good news and a bad news. The bad news is that the shit is going to hit the fan. The good news is that the fan will be off from 8 to 3 due to load shedding.